Hey everybody, it's Live with Dr. Ken. I am Dr. Ken Storth, President and Founder of Visible Music College, and I have with me our esteemed, guest, Simon Alexander, who is the chair of the music department at Modern Music at Visible Music College, and also a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so I'm just about a musician.
That's awesome. Yes, definitely. And we're here to talk about being a music director.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means a lot of different things, a lot of places. We've talked over the weeks about different ways that musicians serve inside, outside the church, in labels, all kinds of different stuff. And today, talking about a music director, how would you define a music director?
How would I define a music director? For me, it's someone who is a good leader, a leader of men, someone that can lead a group of people, understand different personality types, and really just bring out the best from the skill set that the team or the people, musicians have.
Okay.
I think a music director generally is skilled in music, as one would be.
Right.
Understands the goals in the music that they're trying to create for the people, and trying to make it fun along the way.
Okay. And so a music director, are they the very best musician in the group? Do they need to be the very best musician?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that. I would say that good leadership skills come first. I've had a few opportunities over the years when I've been working professionally as a drummer, and I definitely was not the best musician in particular bands, but working with a record label, understanding what they wanted from the artist, bringing the musicians together, organising, running rehearsals, and making sure everyone was ready with the performance material, seemed to take precedence over whether I could analyse, I don't know, something very difficult, I don't know,
right.
like John Coltrane or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a scribe then, which is like same era.
Right.
50s, 60s, crazy time in music.
Right.
Yes, well, that's cool. That's actually one of my questions is, so as a music director, do you arrange music quite a bit? Do you end up arranging or on the fly or the written music ahead of time? Do you think that would be a skill for a music director?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I would say that comes into the organisational side of things, in just preparing particular arrangements, and then making sure you communicate that material to the musician beforehand, so everyone is kind of prepared and ready coming into rehearsals. So you do have to have quite a bit of know-how in music, rhythm, harmony, making sure that you understand what needs to be achieved musically, whether that's notating that or simply just sending an audio file with a demo that you want people to kind of learn. It really depends who you're working with. I'm really fortunate here at Visible because we have a group of staff who are all incredible musicians. So often, if I'm putting a couple of tunes together, or even take for instance the Christmas concert, which we've just finished, just come out of, there were many musicians that worked on the Christmas concert where all I had to do was just send an audio file and say, learn this part, and make sure you're ready for the rehearsal on this date, come prepared, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's great. So it's a lot of organization and communication, which often the most artistic, creative people struggle with a little bit. So which is good. We're going to talk about what kind of training you get to do this. But before we do that, I want to talk about how you would then choose musicians. Like as a music director, how do you audition musicians? What part does that play, and what are you looking for the players and the pieces?
I think often it starts with the experience that the pool of musician has that you might choose from. So if I'm putting a rock gig, for instance, together, often my go-to, it depends on time, but let's say I was short on time, I'm obviously going to go to musicians that have particular experience, like in a rock gig example, would go to musicians that would have some experience playing rock music, and having actually something on their resume, which is very important to us here. All our musicians, whether it's the teachers or the students, are actually all professional musicians. I would say, musicians that come in their first day, we say to them, you are a professional musician, day one. We want you out working. And we give a lot of opportunity for students to actually do that in-house, but then we get a lot of requests for musicians to come out and play. You would be surprised how many emails and phone calls that I get where people are reaching out saying, I need a bass player for this gig in a week's time. Who have you got? Can you send someone? So that happens a lot. I've kind of derailed from your question a little bit.
I think that's good though. But that's a reminder to all the musicians out there who are watching. Have your resume ready. Be able to let the music directors of the world know that you're confident, know that you're good. But also, hey, I have played country before. I have done church gigs, or it's not nothing to have a business card or a website or just a reputation around town. It's important to have that stuff ready.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is about experience, it's not just the playing, it's it reflects a personality that you've been able to hold down a gig, a job, right, that you've prepared, that you've learnt the music, that you showed up on time, that you were easy to work with, that you were a team player. All those things come into question when you're a music director thinking about the musicians that you want to employ for a particular gig. Like going back to the Christmas tour, we put a touring band together that received a scholarship for their efforts, and they worked super hard in preparing to get the music ready. But as we were looking through the pool of musicians and we were selecting people and looking at applicants, it wasn't just a musical skill. It was, can we rely on this person to learn this stuff? Do we have to hold their hand through everything and make sure they learn that? Unfortunately, there's not many people in the school that we would say no to. Most musicians are really pretty great. We're very fortunate, but we got an amazing touring band, which you can check out. visible.edu/ABC.
Yes, the Visible Christmas.
Yeah, little plug there. But I plug it because
go to the 1 hour mark. That's when I play.
Okay. I plug it because I was so proud of the efforts of everyone, and it wasn't just a touring band. We had curricular bands, and if you don't mind me just talking about them quickly as well, because curricular bands are bands that we students enroll in like an ensemble class, which, as you know, is more for the sake of everyone watching here. So I'll say that again. So students enroll in a curricular bands class where they come in as students and they want to play. I mean, as a musician, you want to play with other people. And this time of coming together in an ensemble curricular band is looked after by a staff member, by an MD who really teaches the students. Musical director. Who teaches the students how to rehearse properly. Like, what does it look like to really learn your music before coming in? So it's not a case of just like failing on the job and learning the hard way. We don't want our students to be in that position. We want students to be coming in and actually taught how to do this, how to get in a position where you're at the top of the list so you can get employed. And for the Christmas concert, we had, I want to say, 5 or 6 curricular bands that we were comfortable enough to put on a platform to stream live, which, by the way, I feel like when you are streaming live as a musician playing, I feel like you can get away with less. It's almost like you have, it's a live recording, so you kind of need to be tighter than if it was just in person. And I was extremely proud of all the curricular bands and everything that they did.
I was keenly aware on the live stream, I was like, I just closed my eyes a little too long. I just opened them. I smiled because I remembered the thought of somebody at that moment. And then I went back and watched the live stream. I saw all this stuff so close up. There it was when I smiled. There, everything captured. So it's pressure's on. on live stream, which is going to be with us for some time. Well, you've kind of jumped ahead to the question about the training people receive, which is great because we're here at Visible Music College, live with Dr. Ken. And we're talking about music directors looking for good musicians, and that's what's needed is like a guided, not just, fail until you suddenly are a professional. I don't know why people even think you do that.
Right.
But musicians should be trained. Is there anything else, any other training people need to be a music director that you're thinking that's, besides what we've talked about, sort of arranging and communicating and being a musician?
I think, it goes back to experience a little bit, but for me, I was really fortunate enough to work with some great musical directors or work under some great musical directors.
Okay.
So I was kind of observing some great musical directors and their example and really following their lead. And so students here get that experience through the curricular band process, but also through Madison Line Records, where we have a number of bands and artists that students get the opportunity to play for and put out, this isn't like fun time pretend record company, this is legit, we put records out and put tours together. And then secondly, I would say that students are often being sought after by local churches in particular,
Okay.
not just bands, but churches. There's a lot of churches that actually employ, pay our students
Right.
each week for coming in and learning the material that needs to be learned and assisting with corporate worship, which is incredible. What an honor to be a part of. But there is one church in particular that employs lots of our students, and they have some great musical directors there.
Okay.
One guy, just shout out to Jeff Maxwell, who's an amazing musical director, and a lot of our musicians get an opportunity to learn, outside the school, connected to, but outside of these walls. It's not necessarily visible events, and that can be anything from working with an orchestra to kind of more of a CCM band, or even more of a traditional setting, with reading music, sight reading music with choir and blah, blah, blah. There's lots I could talk about with that, but
That's right.
But I think learning from those people who've had experience out in the field is so important.
That's good. And you sort of went into the area we'll wrap up with, and that's the church, which we do train a lot of students that end up in the church, and that's as a Christian music college. Last question: how's music director different from worship leader, and maybe how can a worship leader be aware of music directors and maybe even be a part of that? Like, hey, that's an idea for how to structure your team or something.
I think when you come down to the basics of what a music director does in leading the team, leading the band, I think many worship leaders I've worked with also double up as musical directors.
Yeah.
So defining a difference between the two, I'm not sure I can do, because I feel like all worship leaders really should have those kind of skills to be able to do that, to be able to serve their church properly. I think it really just depends on the setting. So that's how I would say, more of a secular out there whether it's out there playing in secular venues or whether it's leading corporate worship in your church. Two completely different settings and two completely different interaction, with a congregation and an audience, entertainment versus, actually really leading a team to lift up the name of Jesus. But yeah, sorry, I've derailed again.
Well, I think that's good. I think that's it, is a worship leader really ultimately needs some of the skill, the musical skill, needs the communication, organization, and all that. And I think last thing I would say is that maybe in certain settings, there's a worship leader who has maybe more of a pastoral role or something, and a music director might be more, we work together all week and this person translates a little, but that's a bigger team, that's usually a bigger setting, and some uniquenesses, but doesn't let any of the worship leaders off the hook for learning how to play music, learning how to write music, being organized, providing the songs, but all in all today, as we talk about music director, it gives the opportunity for the drummer or the bass player or someone else to be like, hey, I can lead as the music director, and it also encourages maybe a worship leader or a band front person to be better at what they do too. It's maybe pushing everybody a little bit to, find, follow, and be good at music direction.
Right. And there's so much opportunity. There's just so much of a need, I would say, both in and outside of the church, for skilled musicians that have these communication, organizational, just like life skills, leadership skills, that can come in and lead musicians really, really well. We get so many invitations for students to go and do this all the time in so many different settings, whether that's like a country trio, or whether it's playing with an orchestra. I feel like there's so much need for it, and I think that's why we have made it kind of a top priority to address not just can you play music really, really well, but address character as well. To actually have debriefs from, okay, how did that gig go? Right. How did it go prepping? How was that first rehearsal?
Yes.
Okay, you were spoken to by the musical director in this way about something that you didn't do great. Let's look at that. Yes. Let's see how we can address that and make sure that you're better prepared for next time.
Let's talk about that at a future show. That is a really good topic for a whole show, to talk about that preparation, reflection, feedback, and growth for musicians. That's got me fired up on a whole other show. I love that. So Simon Alexander, chair of the modern music department at